Welcome to this edition of Inside Your Community Schools. This program was developed to answer key questions that community members have for what takes place inside our District 200 schools. My name is Jeff Schuler. I'm the superintendent for District 200.
And I'm Erica Loiacno. I'm the Director of Communications for the district. Today's topic is technology access for all, so welcome.
Great. We're joined by two guests for the show today. First, I'd like to introduce Angela Pagoni, who is our Director of Library Media Services for Wheaton North, and Kyle Mukheiber, who is a senior at Wheaton Warrenville South. Angela, Kyle, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks. We're going to start the conversation around technology, Angela, with you, and I'm just going to kind of ask, what is our approach to the use of technology in District 200? I get asked questions often about, are we one-to-one? How do we use technology in District 200?
We use something called universal access in District 200 at all the schools. That means we are not one-to-one, but we do offer devices to students and teachers as they need it for their learning. This means we are researching online, we are analyzing the information we find, we are connecting with schools and parents outside of the classroom. Our students are publishing, they're planning, they're creating all of the time. Sometimes it's with technology and sometimes it's not.
So, Dr. Schuler, that raises an important question. So we made a conscious decision not to go one-to-one, meaning we do not hand every single student a device that is their own that they use throughout the day. Why did we make that decision in District 200?
It's a great question, and I think for really two major reasons that I would highlight. One is that we didn't want to overinvest in technology. A lot of learning experiences that take place that I'm sure Kyle and Angela can talk about that where technology is not necessarily central to the learning process, or it's not essential that every student have a device at all times. And so for us, it was really about making sure that we can support learning in the way that learning needs to take place. And that doesn't always mean that every child or every student has to have a device in front of them at all times of the day.
So what does universal access look like at each school, Angela? Because we've got 20 schools in the district, 13 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, 2 high schools, a transition center. Learning looks very different by level and at each school. So how does each school implement that approach to technology?
Universal access really means each school moves in the direction that it needs to for its learners. So some schools have carts that they move around the building. Other schools have maybe 5 to 10 devices per classroom, and they use them as the teacher and the students need to use them. Each school has its own way of using universal access.
So at Wheaton North, Angela, how many devices do you have, whether that, in particular Chromebooks, maybe laptops, how many devices do you have at Wheaton North, and what does your system look like during the school day?
So we have about 1,200 Chromebooks and laptops and desktops at Wheaton North High School, and students and staff can use them throughout the day. For the most part, Chromebook carts are assigned to the departments, and the departments share them amongst each other as they need them. If there's a course that needs a Chromebook cart every single day, they're typically assigned one. And then the LLC offers 3 spaces. We have a Chromebook lab, 2 Chromebook labs and a desktop lab, and teachers can reserve that space. Students can use that before and after school, at lunch, during their study hall. We also have student checkout. Students can check out devices to leave the LLC with their ID card, and we organize all of this through a Google spreadsheet online. So it's really like a large puzzle, and we're moving the pieces all day, every day to make sure it all fits.
So Kyle, I want to get your perspective from the student perspective, and first just ask you, do you feel as a student that you have access to technology in your school day, your school experience?
Yeah, I definitely do. In every class that it's required that we need to be working on a laptop or something that has desktop capabilities, we always have that resource available, whether it be a Chromebook cart moving into the room or if that class is actually stationed in a computer lab. But not every class requires it, so not every class needs to have that intense amount of technology. But whenever it's necessary, I never feel like I lose that opportunity by not having a device carried around all day.
And I get asked occasionally from community members, by not having a one-to-one environment, are we putting students behind other students? So again, kind of from the student perspective, you're going to graduate this year, and so do you feel in any way like you're behind when it comes to the use of technology?
No, all 4 years at South, I've felt like there's always been that option where I can find it if I need it, but a good amount of the time I don't need it. Some of my classes, like science classes especially, it's very note heavy, but I would find it a lot harder to take those notes on a laptop or an iPad or something of that type, where I need to be drawing diagrams and writing equations. So a lot of the classes, I think it would be unnecessary to even have that device, but I don't feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I'm not always carrying a device, because as I said earlier, it's always an option to get one when I need it, but I don't always need it.
So Angela, we've primarily talked about access to technology during the school day, and something that you have really been a trailblazer in, if we could say that, is making sure that students have access to technology outside of the school day. So part of our vision for learning in District 200 is students should be able to have access to a device anytime, anywhere, access their work. And so what have you done, what are we doing as a district to make sure our kids can access technology outside of the school day?
Mm-hmm. At Wheaton North, we survey students at the beginning of every school year during their access period, and we ask them 2 really important questions. And we say, do you have access to a working device at home, and does that device have internet? After that, every student, regardless of need, is able to check out a device, like you said, from the library and take it home for up to 3 weeks at a time. So they can access a Chromebook if they need it at home and a Wi-Fi hotspot if they need it at home. And we circulate about 100 of those each out of the LLC every day. Beyond that, the district, as they retire devices, they refresh them and we give them to students who need them at home, who have a need for them.
So that's very interesting that you mentioned that. Sure, students can check out a device, but so much of the work that students are doing today is web-based, and they need the internet to do that. Dr. Schuler, can you talk to us a little bit about an opportunity, a partnership that we entered into with Sprint, and how that has really enhanced our students' ability to access anytime, anywhere?
And I think Angela kind of hit on part of that, certainly answering the last question, in that we came across a partnership with Sprint where if we bought the device, so if we bought the hotspot, they're providing the actual access that goes with that device. And so I believe in the original grant, we have 3 years worth of access out of each of those hotspots. And what I've really been pleased to see is that kind of from that original grant and opportunity, as I've talked to even some of our local libraries, our municipal libraries, they've started to check out the internet in the same way. So whereas previously it was all books or videos that maybe we were checking out, now we're checking out the internet if need be, in the same way that we would any of the other devices in 200. So.
Wonderful. Well, before we close, Kyle, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. If you could give a piece of advice, you're graduating this year, you're a senior 28, class of 2018. If you could give a piece of advice to an incoming freshman at Wheaton Warrenville South or even at Wheaton North High School, what would you say to them to make the most of their high school experience?
Well, I would definitely say, and I have lived this, get involved. It's such an amazing opportunity that we have at COSD 200, where the teachers really care so much, so it's great to build those relationships. You make a lot of friends that you might not have made before, and again, with the teachers, you grow a bond that kind of goes beyond just a teacher-student relationship.
And Kyle, one more along those lines. So I'm curious, just as you reflect on or think about your experience in District 200, when we think about like a one-to-one technology environment, it also would suggest that there is a device that serves all learning opportunities and situations. And I guess I'm just curious, has that been your experience, or do you encounter different technology that perhaps fits specific classroom situations?
I would definitely say that there's not a one-fits-all type of situation here. In my computer science class, it'd be very difficult to complete all the tasks on just a Chromebook. We're in a desktop lab, so each student has a seat that has a desktop, and we are coding on that desktop. But in another class, my senior rec class, where we were writing essays a lot of the time, that Chromebook fit that purpose perfectly, because some days we were learning about the style of writing that we were going to be doing, and then that next day we bring in a Chromebook cart and we would just sit down at our desks and work that. And then other situations, like I said, in a science class or a note-heavy class, a notebook just is perfect.
Yeah, perfect. And Angela, I guess I'm kind of curious your reaction to that same question as you look at learning across I don't know how many classrooms and at Wheaton North. Kind of what do you observe from your seat?
I do see some of the same things that Kyle referred to. We need a camera on an iPad or an iPhone. We need a Chromebook to connect to the internet quickly and do word processing, but you do need a desktop for those photo editing classes, those computer science classes, where a Chromebook and connecting to the internet just isn't enough.
And Angela, last question I guess I wanted to ask you, just a little bit about the Library Learning Center. Just again, even in kind of your time operating inside of that space, how is it different now from perhaps what that space looked like when you perhaps came into the profession, started in the profession?
Yeah, when I started in the library, we were just slowly moving into technology still, and we have had the chance to sort of refresh the space. And so we now have a very different space. It's not quiet. You'd be surprised. It's probably pretty loud in there right now because it's lunchtime. So kids are in and out as they need to be. They're allowed to eat in there if they need to. Students can separate around the space if their teacher needs them to. So we might have kids in a small group room collaborating using the flat screen TV and the whiteboard, whereas other groups are out at the tech tables working on the Chromebooks with their teacher, and then another group in the same classes in the soft seating, sort of meeting or reading or whatever it might be. So it's very fluid, it's very crowded in a good way, and it's just very warm and open, and we really do get a lot of use out of it. It's a great space.
Well, Kyle and Angela, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about technology in the District 200 schools. That's all for this edition of Inside Your Community Schools. Thank you for joining us today to learn about technology. This program is designed to answer questions community members have about your community District 200 schools. If you've got a question or a topic you'd like us to consider addressing in a future edition, please email us at communications@cusd200.org. I look forward to seeing you inside of one of our community schools.